Regular meeting number 9 will now come to order. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Councilmember White, will you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, Council is appreciative to have Dr. Judy Alston, Pastoral Leadership Team at Woodland Christian Church, here to pray with us. Pastor, welcome back to Council.
Good evening, and thank you so much. Let us pray. Creator, sustainer, and giver of life, we offer thanks and are grateful for the opportunity to be here on this day. On this evening, as we gather as servants and citizens of the city of Columbus, we pray that we are all ever mindful of opportunities to render our service to our fellow citizens and to this community. To the one who is known by many names, we come today asking for guidance and wisdom and support. As we begin this meeting, help us to engage in meaningful discussion and allow us to nurture the bonds of community. On this night, I ask that you be with council in their deliberations and decision-making. Help them to be wise in their decisions that are made for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in their leadership. Give them insight to lead with integrity. With so much going on in the world, there's so much hurt and anger and frustration over long histories of racial injustice and inequality. Help the petitions of the marginalized to be heard tonight. Help us to be understanding and in our city as citizens exercise their rights tonight. We pray that the spirit of love, the spirit of community, the spirit of justice reign and abide. We also pray for each council member tonight as they listen and deliberate. Give them the will to change what they can and to do what they can to make the best decisions that they can for our city. We also pray for any personal situations and needs that all who are in attendance may individually have. You're not just public servants, but you are husbands, wives, partners, mothers, fathers, aunts, and uncles, family members outside of chambers. So give us all direction, clarity, and peace. All of these things we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we all hold to be good and right and true. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden. Any person who takes any actions to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. Any person who enters those areas of city council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Thank you. Hearing none, the journal is approved. This week's communication received by the City Clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the City Bulletin. Are there any other communications to be read into the record?
Not at this time.
Thank you. We'll now go around the dais to have any updates or resolutions by council members, starting with Councilmember Bangston.
Thank you, Council President. Just again, another reminder about Accelerate Columbus. The program is live and up, and the application is open for small businesses. Again, 10 programs for our small businesses to choose from, and I'm really excited about our goal of trying to impact over 800 businesses in the city this year. You can learn more at the city's Small Biz Hub. That's CBUS Small Biz, B-I-Z, hub.com to learn more information and to apply. Thank you, Council President. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Barosa de Padilla. Councilmember De Alkire.
Thank you, President Harden. As Chair of Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee, which oversees public art, I want to draw attention to the highly anticipated State of Public Art report from the Greater Columbus Arts Council that came out earlier today. This report is a culmination of 6 months of extensive research and community engagement centered around public art in the Greater Columbus area. This pivotal document offers a thorough analysis of the current state of public art in our region. And while it's not the final plan itself, the report is a critical step in the creation of a comprehensive public art strategy for Columbus and Franklin County, which will be released in June of this year. And anyone interested in reading the report could go to the GCAC website. And there's a lot of work to be done in this sphere, but I am excited to see what the future holds for public art in Columbus. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Pres Pro Tem.
Thank you, Council President. I do have a resolution here this evening. However, the individual that we're honoring is actually unable to be here at this point, so I'm actually going to move to table or postpone that resolution to our next meeting on the 26th.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Postpone.
Thank you, Council President. I don't have any other announcements.
Of course. Councilmember Favorite.
Thank you, Council President Harden. With this year's Black History Month theme being African Americans in the Arts, I've set out to highlight each week a Black artist who helped build Columbus's art scene. To continue this series, I'd like to share the story of William Hawkins. Mr. Hawkins was a self-taught painter who became known for his work depicting Ohio landscapes, newspaper clippings, and animals. Mr. Hawkins was born in rural Kentucky before moving to Columbus in 1916, a self-taught artist who began creating his painting career in 1930s and only became nationally known in 1982 after winning first prize in the amateur artist category at the Ohio State Fair. Now, his work is held in collections across the nation, including the Smithsonian American Art Museum, the American Museum of Folk Art in New York, and of course, the Columbus Museum of Art. That is all for me this week, Council President.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Favor. Councilmember Green.
Nothing for me, Council President.
Councilmember Remy. Councilmember White. Thank you, council members. Just two notes. One, that there will be no council meeting next week in observance of President's Day, so our next regular meeting here in Chambers will be Monday, February 26th. And also, this will be our last reminder from the dais that our Black History Month, Council's Black History Month celebration and Poindexter Award ceremony will be this Friday from 10 a.m. to noon at the Lincoln Theater. And we are really excited. On Friday, we announced this year's Poindexter Award recipients, those being Barbara Cleveland, Ms. Suzanne Bradford, Larry James, Baba Tony, and Aziza West, and Richard Durart Brown. And so we're really excited to celebrate the contributions that these artists and art supporters have made to the community here in Columbus. And we encourage and ask folks to join us on Friday morning. Are there any comments from City Attorney's Office, from the Treasurer's Office? Seeing none, are there any requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from the consent portion of the agenda? Hearing none, may we now have a motion to waive reading of titles of 30-day legislation by the clerk? So moved. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you. Will the clerk now read into the record the ordinance number of 30-day legislation on tonight's agenda?
Finance and Governance Committee, Ordinance 324-2024. Economic Development and Small and Minority Business Committee, Ordinance 389-2024. Public Service and Transportation Committee, Ordinance 320-2024. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, Ordinance 360-2024. Health and Human Services and Equity Committee, Ordinance 282-2024. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, Ordinance 346-2024. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinances 183, 184, 185, 192, 199, 207, 259, 267, 289-2024. Rules and Policy Committee, ordinance 327-2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We don't have any speakers on the first reading portion of the agenda, so the following ordinances appear on our agenda as consent actions. Will the clerk read those into the record?
Resolution of Expression 19X-2024, Finance and Governance Committee, ordinances 255, 261, 285, 270, I'm sorry, that last number was 265, 270, 313, 328-2024. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinance 291-2024. Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee, ordinances 275 and 460-2024. Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, ordinance 197-2024. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, ordinances 74, 276, 302, and 316-2024. Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, ordinances 277, 333, and 386-2024. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, ordinances 181, 285, 314-2024. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinances 247, 363, and 371-2024. Rules and Policy Committee, we have appointments from the Mayor's Office numbered A0039, 40, 41, and 43-2024.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We don't have any speakers on the consent portion of the agenda. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Consent agenda is passed. We'll now proceed with the second reading of 30-day tabled and emergency legislation. The first committee to come before council is the Rules and Policy Committee. On page 12, I chair this committee. Councilmember Bankston has one ordinance there. Councilmember Bankston, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. As you mentioned, we are on page 12 in the Rules of Reference Committee. This is ordinance 0394-2024 to amend Chapter 329 of the Columbus City Codes and the related food and beverage policy to authorize the purchase of food and beverages for a public purpose and to declare an emergency. This ordinance seeks authority to amend Columbus City Code Section 329 to clarify existing code language and to specifically provide for food and beverage purchases for employee trainings and development programs, as well as extraordinary situations that impact employee safety and/or program delivery. Employee development programs are critical to ensure that city staff are trained and knowledgeable about the most efficient and effective means to deliver services and programming to the community. This ordinance specifically provides for food and beverage purchases in cases that involve employee safety and/or program delivery. These needs constitute a public purpose, and training and development program that includes a food and beverage component are capped at one such event per departmental programmatic area per year. In layman terms, this is basically allowing our departments to be able to more easily purchase food and beverage for employee trainings and those kinds of developments that happen. Right now, we have the ability, we've updated this just last year for external purposes. This is just updating that to reflect internal purposes for city departments. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? And seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have this evening.
President Pro Tem Dorans, you mind if we go back to you to clean up something I think that we just need to fix real quick?
Yes, thank you. On resolution 0030X-2024, I first move to reconsider.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Reconsider.
Thank you. And now I move to refer said resolution back to committee.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Refer back to committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next committee coming before council is the Public Service and Transportation Committee, chaired by Councilmember Barosa de Padilla. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. I have 3 ordinances today in public service and transportation. The first is ordinance 0101-2024 to authorize the city attorney to file complaints in order to immediately appropriate and accept the remaining fees, simple and lesser real estate necessary to timely complete the FRA CR 96-1.71 Arterial Street Rehabilitation Cassidy Avenue Widening Project, to authorize an expenditure of $1,629,188 split among the Morse Road TIF Fund, Fund number 7414, Streets and Highways General Obligation Bonds Fund, and the Federal Transportation Grant Fund, and to declare an emergency. Their Arterial Street Rehabilitation Cassidy Avenue Widening Project improvements consist of the full reconstruction of the roadway to a 3-lane curb and gutter section with additional turn lanes at the intersection with East 5th Avenue. This project is installing sidewalks along the east side, a shared use path along the west side, and additional improvements including traffic signal replacement, street lighting, street trees where feasible, and storm sewer. The city must acquire certain fee, simple, title, and lesser real estate located in the vicinity of the Cassidy Avenue corridor from the City of Bexley Corporation line to the 7th Avenue in order for DPS to timely complete the public project. The city's acquisition of the real estate will help make, improve, or repair certain portions of the public right-of-way, which will be open to the public without charge. So we do have we actually have 3 speakers, and Council President, with your permission, there is one speaker that I think might have signed up non-agenda but is speaking about this ordinance. And I want to give them the opportunity to speak on the ordinance before we make any decisions. So the 3 speakers are Kyle Campbell, Ginger Tornes, and Sarah Mula Robso. I apologize if I mispronounce your name, but they will go in that order. So each of our speakers has 3 minutes, and if they could also, when they come up, introduce themselves and any organizations that they represent. So Kyle Campbell, if you want to come up, and welcome back to council.
I just wanted to preface by saying I believe Ginger will not be speaking today.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'll start. You might be wondering why I'm walking with a limp today. If you guessed that I was hit by a car this morning, then you would be correct. My name is Kyle Campbell, and I'm standing here with friends and families for Safe Streets Columbus in opposition to the Cassidy Avenue widening project. This last week, I have been planning a bike bus route around my neighborhood so that children can safely ride their bikes to school instead of waiting for a bus every morning. My intent was to cover most of the near south side, east of Parsons Avenue, carefully choosing routes that connect parks and community gardens to various elementary schools in the neighborhood. This morning, as I was test riding this route, I filmed this ride with a GoPro in order to share with others and get feedback. Less than a mile from the end of the route, I approached a 2-way stop on a quiet residential street, no different than dozens of others along this route. A man rolled through a stop sign, failed to see me or yield, and hit my rear wheel while accelerating through the intersection. I was knocked off my bike, but aside from my brand new bike needing some hefty repairs, I'll be fine. Here's the footage that I recorded of this crash. Now I understand it's probably pretty hard to see that, but it was pretty traumatic when it happened. A 2-way stop at the intersection of 2 residential streets doesn't seem like the kind of place where something like this would occur. So what happened? The man failed to stop completely at the stop sign, but because there are so many stop signs on the south side, nobody fully stops at them anyway, including myself. In failing to stop, however, I was in the blind spot created by his right A-pillar in between his windshield and his passenger side window. So from his perspective, he saw no oncoming traffic to his right and proceeded. In fact, even though I consider myself to be a safe driver, I rolled through a stop sign and was T-boned myself a few months ago. I fully blame myself for that, but this kind of thing happens way too often to simply be a fluke or as evidence of a bad driver. There is no use blaming the driver or myself for what happened, because ultimately this is a failure of the city to design a safe intersection. I know it is possible to change this intersection and every other 2-way stop like this in the south side, because it's already been done just down the street from my house. And right here, this is the intersection of Sycamore and Linwood Avenue. It has a mini roundabout installed, if you can't see. On Linwood Avenue, there are 3 mini roundabouts that have been installed at 3 intersections. These have been demonstrated to be safer for a multitude of reasons, and if these mini roundabouts had been installed at Mithoff and Gilbert, where I was hit, then this collision would not have happened. These mini roundabouts have existed for over 15 years, but not a single one has been added since then. These are extremely cheap and quick ways to slow traffic and increase safety at intersections that do not have the right of way for something else. My question that I ask of you, City Council, is what would the $1.6 million for this project better be used for? Would it best be used for demolishing homes so that more lanes can be added, or rather redesigning intersections so that children can safely ride their bikes to school without being killed by a driver rolling through a stop sign?
You can finish. Did you have more? You can
that
finish.
is all.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, I'm so sorry that that happened to you, and I'm glad that you are able to be here with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. I didn't intend to be here originally, but.
Well, thank you for coming, and I hope that you take care of yourself after this. And, you know, you and I have had many conversations about this topic, and I, first of all, always appreciate your advocacy. I want to ensure that we can also get, I think I wrote down the right intersection, but I'll make sure that my aide, Jessica, also just talks to you afterwards.
I can
And
spell that
then,
information.
absolutely, and we can share that information. I want to ensure before we have a conversation about this particular project, I want to give our speaker an opportunity, and then we're going to go to the department. So thank you for sharing this with us again today, and we'll continue the conversation. And I have some updates after. So absolutely. So our next speaker, Sarah Mulu Robeso. Sarah here? I'm sorry? She's coming? Do we know how far away? I mean, is she in the building? No? Okay, so what we will do is we'll collect the testimony, because I know that there's some feedback in particular about this project. I want to, just for the purposes of, so that we're all on the same page before I hand it over to the director, is that in this particular project, as I understand it, is this is a unique intersection, because while this does not follow, while we do are not always in the habit of widening streets, in this particular intersection, because of the amount of semi-trucks that go along the street, because there is an industrial parkway where there's probably 100 to 200 trucks that come in and out of that parkway, it has become a dangerous intersection. I know this is one that I often drive. It is right by the freeway intersection. The industrial park goes all the way from the train tracks all the way down to, to Fifth Avenue. And so the turn is quite narrow. And the purpose of widening the street, this is testing my knowledge, the purpose of widening the street is to make it easier for the semis as they turn. So, Director, I'd like to give you the floor to first test me, make sure that that is correct, and this is why we had taken this particular measure. And while we are not in the business of practicing eminent domain, very rarely have we done this. In this particular instance, it was necessary because of the safety issues. And then can you just talk about how we cared for the folks who are most directly impacted by that?
Good evening, President Hardin, Chair Barosa de Padilla, members of council. Yes, Chair, you are correct. This is a safety project, mostly to address the heavy truck usage that is at 5th and Cassidy. The intersection has many safety issues, including the lack of facilities for cyclists and pedestrians, poor sight distances, poor geometrics for turning vehicles, particularly the trucks, and we've seen a very high amount of crashes at this location. It is on our high injury network. I will say that the Fifth Avenue is on the National Truck Network, so that means that it is designated as a heavy truck usage area. We are widening it out just at the intersection for the truck turning movements. And you are correct. Typical Vision Zero would be to bring in the pedestrian curbs so they don't have as far to cross. However, because of the turning movements with the trucks, we needed to widen them out. And it is our professional engineering staff's judgment that we would create a more unsafe situation if the bump outs were there, and that we said it is safe for you pedestrians to stand there, and a truck would come up onto the sidewalk and to, unfortunately, potentially hit a pedestrian, which would be incredibly unfortunate. It is just an unsafe condition that we are trying to avoid. An example of where we did try to narrow the turning radiuses is at Livingston and James Road, also in your neighborhood, Chair. And in construction, before we even had the project constructed, we had multiple times the pedestrian signal get hit and knocked down because of the trucks turning. We had made it too tight. So in construction, we actually had to widen that turn out at this southeastern corner in order for the trucks to be able to safely move.
And then again, for the folks who are most directly impacted because of the eminent domain, there is assistance that is provided to those folks, correct?
Yes, there is. And this is a process, the acquisition process is being conducted by the city attorney's office. I really do not feel like I'm at liberty to talk about their process this evening.
Okay, so just to confirm with the city attorney's office, there is a process that we go through to ensure that, again, those whether it's residents or business owners, are taken care of. They're given some sort of time to move, and then there's compensated in some sort of way, correct?
Council President, Chair DeRosa de Padilla, that's correct. We, without getting too deep into it, we will negotiate with property owners to make sure that they are fairly compensated. We will take a look at expert reports to determine what a fair value for a piece of property is. And our real estate section will engage in negotiation with anybody that is affected and attempt to reach an agreement with a party before we, go down the traditional eminent domain of filing litigation and actually physically taking property from somebody.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to put a fine point on this. So while this is a unusual project in terms of the strategy, because it does not follow all of the Vision Zero to a T, obviously that is a guidebook. Because of the uniqueness of this particular project, that is why we have taken the measures that we have taken.
I would say that Vision Zero protects all users. And in this case, it is protecting the most vulnerable users of the pedestrians. Because if we said that it was, if we narrowed that intersection in and said that it was safe for them to stand on that bump out, then we were creating, we were not taking their safety into account.
Thank you, Director. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Thank you. So I just want to say, because I know that we have a number of transit activists that were here, I'm happy to follow up on any conversations. Later in March, we are identifying a date now so that we can continue the conversations that I know that we started last week, and conversations that we're continuing to start, where we can share other plans about Vision Zero. We can talk a little bit about our quick fix projects that we are thinking of and that want to get input back from the community. I want to thank you all again for being here. Again, my aide, I know that Ms. Mulu Robeson has been in contact with the city, and so my aide will follow up with her. It's unfortunate that she's not here to testify now, but I want to thank her for her testimony, and thank you for being here today. And with that, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Day, Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you, Council President. Next ordinance is 0311-2024 to authorize the city attorney to file complaints in order to immediately appropriate and accept the remaining fee simple lesser real estate necessary to timely complete the Operation Safe Walks schools, sidewalks, Grace Street Sidewalk Project, PID 113775, project number 590955-100061, to authorize an expenditure of $3,818 from the Streets and Highways General Obligation Bond Fund and to declare an emergency. This project will install sidewalks along Grace Street between Orrell, I think I'm saying that correctly, Avenue and Eureka Avenue. The city must acquire certain fee simple title and lesser real estate located in the vicinity of Grace Street, Eureka Avenue to Orrell Avenue in order for DPS to timely complete the public project. The acquisition of the real estate will help make, improve, or repair certain portions of the public right-of-way located in the vicinity of Grace Street. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President. And our last ordinance this evening in Public Service and Transportation is 0326-2024 to amend the 2023 capital improvement budget to authorize the transfer of funds and appropriation within the Streets and Highways Bond Fund, to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Service to enter into a contract modification with Burgess and Nipple in connection with the intersection improvements safety study General Engineering 2018 project, to authorize the expenditure of $100,000 from the Streets and Highways Bond Fund for the project and to declare an emergency. The intent of this project is to provide the City of Columbus Department of Public Service additional resources to develop safety studies, school circulation studies, analysis and plans, perform traffic and roadway engineering, survey data collection, and other safety studies work as necessary. This data helps inform Vision Zero and helps the Department of Public Service, gives the Department of Public Service extra capacity. This contract has been renewed since 2018. Director, is there anything that you want to add about this particular ordinance?
Good evening again. This engineering contract does, allow us to use a data-driven approach to determine where we need to be focusing engineering efforts for Vision Zero and what safety studies we need to conduct. So that's it.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, favor green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, and that's all for me this evening, Council President.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember de Alkire. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. First in the committee this evening is Ordinance 128-2024 to authorize the Director of Recreation and Parks to enter into contract with Builderscape Incorporated for the Alkire Park Development Project, to authorize the appropriation of $690,984.77 within the Recreation and Parks Permanent Improvement Fund, to authorize the transfer of $736,195.16 within the Recreation and Parks Voted Bond Fund, to authorize the amendment of the 2023 capital improvements budget, and to authorize the expenditure of $1,509,813 from the Recreation and Parks Permanent Improvement Fund and Voted Bond Fund. In 2007, Recreation and Parks acquired 110 acres of former farmland on the city's west side near the village of Galloway. The property is located within the Big Darby Tier 1 environmental preservation areas and is considered a key preservation site. As part of the acquisition, 25 acres of land was set aside for a future community park. Upon completion, this park will feature a 7,900 square foot playground, a rustic timber open-air shelter, and an asphalt path connecting to the Camp Chase Trail and neighboring developments. The park will also include a meandering natural surface walking loop and open green spaces. The thoughtful design of the park aims to not only provide recreational amenities, it will also aim to showcase and protect the inherent beauty of the existing bluestem meadow, forested areas, and wetlands. These improvements will elevate the overall user experience. The construction is scheduled to start in the spring of 2024 and is expected to be completed by late fall of this year. And I am thrilled about this ordinance when I learned that we'd be able to vote on it tonight, because this is a community I served for many years that is in need of more parkland and recreational opportunities. I remember attending my first Westland Area Commission meeting many years ago when the department made a presentation on this park. So it is super exciting to see it finally, start to come to fruition. Director Reese, do you have any additional information you'd like to share on the project?
Thank you, Chair Alkire. No further comments, just happy that we are able to serve all residents throughout the city.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have Ordinance 368-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Neighborhoods to enter into a sponsorship grant agreement to authorize the expenditure of $15,000 from the General Fund, Office of Diversity and Inclusion, using BRP 002623 and to declare an emergency. This ordinance allows neighborhoods to sponsor Dress for Success Columbus 2024 Level Up Summit on March 2nd at Columbus Day. Dress for Success is a well-established nonprofit dedicated to empowering women to achieve economic independence by providing a network of support, professional attire, and the development tools to help them thrive in work and in life. The event is a free personal and professional development conference designed to build skilled leaders and equip women for long-term career success. The conference will include speakers as well as opportunities such as resume reviews, career coaching, job fair, pop-up shop highlighting new workplace trends, free professional headshots, and the opportunity to network and engage with leaders across the community. This organization has had a tremendous impact on our community, providing tools to women navigating the workplace and ensuring no woman is left behind. This event is the perfect culmination of everything Dress for Success does, and I can't wait to see how it goes. Director William Scott, do you have any additional information you'd like to mention with this ordinance?
Thank you, Chair Alkire, President Council, members of Council. Just that this work really aligns with our work with the Commission on Black Girls as well, and it's a partnership with our Office of Diversity and Inclusion, and so we're very excited to be able to sponsor this, the Level Up Summit. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? I would like to ask for a voice vote on this, please.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Mr. Bangston. Ms. Barosa de Padilla. Ms. de Alkire.
Yes.
Mr. Dorans.
Yes.
Ms. Favor. Ms. Green.
Yes.
Mr. Remy.
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
President Harden.
Yes. Ordinance is passed.
Okay, so
Thank you. That is all I have in my committee this evening.
So motion to reconsider. Can we just go to the next committee and keep going? Yes, the ordinance is passed. Next, is that all in your committee, Madam Chair?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Next committee coming for council is the Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilmember Favor. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President Harden. Tonight in Housing, Homeless, and Building, we have Ordinance 0388-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to modify a grant agreement in an amount up to $3 million to provide housing support and service coordination for the residents of the Colonial Village Apartment Complex to the Community Shelter Board, to authorize payment for reasonable food and non-alcoholic beverages for residents, to authorize the advancement of funds on a predetermined schedule, to authorize the transfer of $3 million from the General Fund citywide account to the Department of Development General Fund budget, to authorize the expenditure of $3 million from the General Fund, and to declare an emergency. Throughout December 2023 and January 2024, over 300 households were relocated to temporary housing due to unsafe and unhealthy conditions at the Colonial Village apartment complex. The Community Shelter Board is providing each household with temporary housing at a hotel or motel and coordinating the provision of meals, transportation, and access to a relocation specialist and other support services. The number of residents being temporarily housed by the Community Shelter Board has grown to 1,300 since the initial $600,000 was allocated for this project on December 14, 2023. In order to fulfill the goals of this project, it is necessary to allocate an additional $3 million. This piece of legislation will enable the Community Shelter Board to continue providing services to these families and individuals, and is necessary to prevent any disruption to the services being offered to tenants. Deputy Director Harris, do you have any additional remarks you'd like to make at this time?
Thank you, President Harden. Chair Favor. Since October of 2023, the City of Columbus has been working with Franklin County, the Emergency Management Services, and community partners, including Legal Aid, the Community Refugee and Immigrant Services, and the Haitian Community Network, to assist the families who are residing at Colonial Village. 2 resource fairs were also hosted by the city in November, providing access to services including legal representation for housing and immigration issues, food security, health assessments, and education. Additionally, temporary housing assistance is being provided to families, offering 523 households representing 1,377 individuals a motel room free of charge through the end of March of this year. We continue to work with Legal Aid and Community Refugee and Immigrant Services on the legal services side, as well as R.H. Brown and Associates and Compass to connect eligible residents with apartments and rental assistance. As of today, 454 households remain in temporary housing. 68 have moved out, with 32 successfully placed in a new unit through our assistance. At the end of last year, City Council approved legislation to provide an initial allocation of funding to the Community Shelter Board to support this effort. So this ordinance provides the remaining funding in the amount of $3 million. Like the situation at Latitude 525, the city attorney has filed a motion with the court requesting that the city be reimbursed for costs associated with the relocation of tenants. Thank you for your consideration of this legislation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments at this time? And we did, thank you for making mention that this was an active case with the city attorney's office. Our city attorney is present today. Do you have any additional remarks you'd make at the time? I know it's an outstanding case.
Nothing to share unless council has any questions.
Are there any additional questions or comments for the city attorney's office? With that, I'd move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, Pridgen-Hardin.
Pass.
Thank you. That's all I have in my committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, chaired by Councilmember Remy. Councilmember, the floor is yours. I apologize. Actually, the next committee to come before council is the Health and Human Services and Equity Committee, chaired by Councilmember Green. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. I have one ordinance tonight in Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee in second reading. It is ordinance number 0325-2024 to amend the 2023 capital improvement budget to transfer funds between projects within the Development Taxable Bonds Fund, to authorize the Director of the Department of Development to enter into a grant agreement with the Young Women's Christian Association, the Young Men's Christian Association of Central Ohio, the Community Development for All People, Huckleberry House, Inc., the Open Shelter, Inc., and Southeast, Inc., in the amount of up to $1,499,661 to assist in the repair of emergency shelters for individuals and families experiencing homelessness, to authorize the expenditure of $1,499,661 from the Developmental from the Development Taxable Bonds Fund to authorize the advancement of funds on a predetermined schedule during the term of the agreement and to authorize the reimbursement of expenditures incurred prior to the establishment of a purchase order and to declare an emergency. Through this ordinance, the city is committing funds from the 2023 capital improvement budget to support the renovation and maintenance of several emergency shelters to enhance our shelter system to provide essential services to individuals and families experiencing housing insecurity across our city. Upgrades include renovations and roof repairs at the YWCA Columbus Family Center, renovations to the YMCA's Van Buren Center, including the installation of external light fixtures, renovations to CD4AP, including flooring, installation of motion lights, and cleaning of air handling units, installation of a community kitchen inside the open shelter, which serves as a daytime drop-in center, and finally, renovations to help increase capacity at Southeast Inc.'s Friends of the Homeless Shelter, which will increase the number of toilets and urinals, replace the bathroom flooring, paint all interior spaces, and will add more beds and showers. Emergency action is being requested in order to expedite the completion of these projects for our shelter system to effectively serve our unhoused residents for the remainder of this winter season. Do my colleagues have any questions or concerns? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. That's all on my committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, chaired by Councilman Remy. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Council President Harden. Tonight I have 318-2024 to authorize and direct the city attorney to settle the lawsuit captioned James England versus City of Columbus et al. United States District Court case number 217 CV 104 to authorize a transfer of $300,000 from the general fund to authorize the expenditure of the sum of $300,000.00 from the general fund in settlement of the lawsuit and to declare an emergency. I'm going to throw this over to the city attorney's office to provide us background on this to our city solicitor general, Rich Congolese. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President Harden, Chairman Remy. Just by way of background, the plaintiff in this case had an outstanding warrant for felonious assault. Columbus police show up. They're in the process of arresting him. He is handcuffed, and officer is trying to get him out in the back area of the residence, attempting to lift him up and out of a semi-enclosed area through a door. As the officer is doing that, there is a question of fact whether or not the plaintiff attempted to get away or if the officer was losing his balance. As this is going on, officer drops taser, has his gun, discharges the firearm a couple times, hits him. So as as CPD is, or Public Safety is reviewing this through the chain of command, initially chain of command had determined that the use of the weapon was inappropriate and outside of policy. Chief Jacobs determined that it was inside policy. We file a motion for summary judgment. The court denies the summary judgment motion. We attempt to appeal the case up to the Sixth Circuit. The Sixth Circuit dismissed the appeal. It said this is all a question for the jury to determine. So going through all of this, taking a look at exposures that we have, we ended up prior to trial speaking with plaintiff's counsel and had reached an agreement with them for a settlement of $300,000. Keep in mind that this case, as with other cases where we're in federal court in a 1983 claim, the biggest exposure that we always have in these kinds of cases, I shouldn't say we always have, but we have most of the time in these types of cases, is attorney's fees. I don't have an exact figure for you on fees, but I would tell you professional judgment. If we are looking at a case like this, having gone through discovery, having briefed the case at the trial court, had it up to the Court of Appeals, had it back prior to trial. Probably looking in a situation like that of fees in the neighborhood of $600,000 to $750,000. So we believe that a $300,000 settlement in this case is appropriate. Keep in mind that with these types of cases, a $1 verdict for the plaintiff entitles them to full recovery of attorney's fees. So, even if we go to trial and basically win by getting a $1 verdict, we would probably be here with an ordinance that would be asking for even more than we are asking for here.
Solicitor General, when did this case originally occur? Because it's been some time. Obviously, Jacobs was chief.
Yes, it was filed. I'm sorry. The incident occurred on February 6, 2015.
And we get asked this consistently, but is it possible to use, for settlements like this, to use police seizure funds to pay for them?
It is not. Police seizure funds can be used under both federal and state law for very specific purposes. One of those purposes is not, however, for settlements of 1983 litigation. So we have to use general fund money or.
Understood. Yeah. And the original case was, I think they were asking for millions, if I'm not correct.
That is correct.
Yeah. Do any of my colleagues have any questions? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed.
The next three ordinances in public safety and criminal justice tonight are all related. I'd like to, I'm going to throw it back over to the city attorney's office and then take any questions from my colleagues, and then I'll read the titles and we will consider passage. So the ordinances tonight are ordinances 337, 390, and 393, 2024. All three ordinances are for contract modifications with Isaac Wiles, Burkholder, and Teeter LLC for outside legal counsel. I will turn it back over to you, Solicitor General, to talk about what these three ordinances mean and what they're about.
Okay, thank you. Council President Harden, Chairman Remy. All three of these ordinances come out of the same basic set of facts. As council is aware, as a result of the protests that occurred downtown in the 2020 timeframe as a result of the George Floyd shooting in Minnesota, one of the things that our office did was engage special counsel to examine the issues, any potential either administrative or criminal issues from the Columbus Division of Police to see if the police response in any way violated either the administrative rules of the department or if there were crimes committed by the police themselves. As a result of that special prosecutor investigation, certain criminal charges were filed against some officers. One officer took the case through trial, resulted in an acquittal. Special prosecutor dismissed other charges. The officers who were subjected to those situations filed lawsuits. The first one is a case that is currently pending in the Southern District of Ohio over in federal court. The other two cases are currently pending in Franklin County Common Pleas Court. But again, all operated out of the same essential facts, just different claims in different courts. Because our office has a conflict, specifically, we represented the city in the lawsuits that were brought against the city by protesters, and because members of our office may well be witnesses in the cases that were brought by the officers, we decided that we have a conflict and we can't defend the case, so we hired Isaac Wiles as counsel to represent the city in that case as a special appointment. Those initial contracts were done for $50,000. As that litigation has been proceeding, we had asked Isaac Wiles to give us their good faith estimate as far as what fees they will generate all the way through trial. That includes potentially hiring experts and everything else. Their good faith estimate for litigation all the way through is what those three ordinances are for. I believe the first one is $150,000, and then the other two are $75,500 each. The other two cases in front of Common Pleas Court have been consolidated for purposes of discovery, and but based on the work that our counsel has put in to determine kind of what they believe, we are relatively confident that, you know, this should be, from an attorney's fees perspective, the one and only time that we come before council and ask.
Can you explain the difference between the pricing? Obviously, the Shaw case is more than the other two, so what's that discrepancy?
Sure. The reason that the Shaw case is more is that it has been going on longer, and so although the discovery kind of really works across the board there, what you find in one, you're going to be turning over in the others, because it has been around longer, they just put more of the expenses into that case. And so that's the reason for the difference in contract values.
And also, is there the possibility that the discovery in the Shaw case will provide funding, or I'm sorry, some of that discovery can be used in the other two cases?
Absolutely. Yeah, they should. Some of the discovery, you know, going through watching body worn camera video, things like that, that type of stuff should just be able to be turned over into the other cases as well.
Do we expect any other cases to be brought against the city over the same time period similar to this?
Although it's always hard to tell you yes or no to a question like that, our best legal opinion at this point is we are unaware of anything. The statute of limitations has either expired or will be expiring shortly, and we are unaware of anybody else who may have a claim. You know, can't tell you it's not going to happen, but we don't believe anything else should be coming forward.
Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have any questions this evening? All right, seeing none, I will move into the legislation. The first piece of legislation is 337-2024 to authorize the city attorney to modify an existing contract with Isaac Wiles, Burkholder, and Teeter, LLC, for outside legal counsel services for the case of Shaw versus Wozniak et al. 223 CV 00942, pending in the United States District Court for the Southern District of Ohio, to authorize the expenditure of $150,000 for the general fund and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Next, I have ordinance 390-2024 to authorize the city attorney to modify an existing contract with Isaac Wiles, Burkholder, and Teeter, LLC, for outside counsel services for the case of Walls versus City of Columbus et al. 23 CV 002351, pending in the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas, to authorize the expenditure of $73,500 from the general fund and to declare an emergency. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
And finally, I have ordinance 393-2024 to authorize the city attorney to modify an existing contract with Isaac Wiles, Burkholder, and Teeter, LLC, for outside legal counsel services for the case of Canode versus City of Columbus et al. 23 CV 004880, pending in the Franklin County Court of Common Pleas, to authorize the expenditure of $73,500 from the general fund and to declare an emergency. Not seeing any questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you very much, Council President. That is all I have in public safety and criminal justice this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee. chaired by Councilmember White. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Harding. Tonight in Public Utilities and Sustainability, we have one ordinance coming before council today, and that is Ordinance 0191-2024 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to enter into a construction contract with Danbert, Inc. for the Riverview Drive Area Water Line Improvements Project, to authorize the appropriation and transfer of funds from the Water Systems Reserve Fund to the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account Fund, to authorize the appropriation and expenditure of up to $4,258,217.43 from the Water Supply Revolving Loan Account Fund for the contract, and to authorize the expenditure of up to $2,000 from the Water Bond Fund to pay for construction, administration, and inspection expenses for the project. These funds will be used to replace and rehabilitate the water lines with high break histories and frequent maintenance, replacing about 8,500 linear feet of varying size water mains. The streets include Riverside Drive, Harley Drive, West Pasemont Road, Indianola Ave, East Kenworth Road, Carl Road Cul-de-sac, Norwood Street, Hugh Road, and Bartonell Boulevard. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Thank you. That is all I have in my committee this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Seeing no further business to come before council, is there a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Meeting is adjourned. We're now going to go to our non-agenda speakers, and we have several speakers.
10 will now come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing no additions or correction, the journal is approved. We'll now go to the zoning committee. I chair that committee. All members serve on it. Allow me to briefly explain our current rules pertaining to speaking before council on rezonings and variances. We will only hear a staff presentation for ordinances that have a disapproval from a recommending body, or if we have a public speaker sign up to speak against an ordinance. We allow 3 speakers in favor of and 3 speakers against an ordinance. If someone signs up to speak and is not present, the next person on the list will fill that slot. All speakers of council variance, including city staff, area commissioners, applicants, and members of the public, will be sworn in before they give testimony. This evening, we have 3 public speaker slips for their legislation in the committee tonight. Representatives of an area commission applicants are always able to speak on an ordinance and do not need to fill out a speaker slip. On the advice of the city attorney's office, I will now swear in city staff. Please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, as you shall answer in pains or penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do. I do. Thank you. Please let the record reflect that Tim Dietrich and Phil Asher from the Department of Building and Zoning Services, Christopher Lohr from the Division of Planning, and Dan Bleschmidt from the Department of Public Service have been sworn in. Before we get to the ordinances on our agenda tonight, I want to point out a few items. On our agenda tonight, we'll be considering 5 total ordinances that could pave the way for building up to 64 new housing units across the city of Columbus. If approved, these new units will be built in Northland, Southside, Clintonville, and University Area Commission planning neighborhoods. With that in mind, we'll move to the legislation. First, we have ordinance number 3392-2023 to rezone 5925 Sawmill Road, being .86 plus acres located on the west side of Sawmill Road, being 325 plus feet south of Kier Drive from CPD Commercial Plan Development District to CPD Commercial Plan Development District. At the request of the applicant, I first moved to refer this ordinance back to committee. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Referred to committee. Next, we have ordinance 0286-2024 to grant a variance in provisions of section 3309.14 height districts, 3312.21 landscaping and screening, 3312.49 required parking, and 3361.02 CPD permitted uses, 3361.03 development plan, and 3361.07 effect of registered development plan, the Columbus City Codes, with property located at 5432 North Hamilton Road, to allow a multi-unit residential development with reduced development standards in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The applicant is Homeport and looking to develop one undeveloped parcel that will allow for a multi-unit residential development with a maximum of 60 units. The proposal has approval from city staff, but a disapproval from Northland Community Council. Once again, due to the disapproval from the Civic Association, we will now hear a staff presentation. Mr. Asher, from the Department of Building and Zoning Services, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Jorns, members of council. As the chair stated, this site consists of one undeveloped parcel in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. The requested council variance will allow a multi-unit residential development with a maximum of 60 units. Council variance is necessary because ground floor residential uses are not allowed in the CPD Commercial Plan Development District. Additional variances are requested to allow increased building height, to eliminate parking lot shade tree islands, to reduce the number of required parking spaces from 90 to 60, to replace the approved CPD plan. The site is located within the planning area of the Northland Plan Volume 2, which recommends Preserve District at this location, continuing the residential development pattern on the east side of North Hamilton Road. The proposed multi-unit residential development is consistent with this recommendation and is of a comparable intensity to the residential uses to the east and is therefore supported. The proposed multi-unit residential development is aimed at providing affordable housing and will be subject to a competitive funding process by the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, or OFA, which requires certain land attributes, including compliant zoning. Staff supports the council variance process to assist in the OFA funding application process.
Thank you, sir. We'll now move to other representatives from the city. We'll hear from representative of the city's Division of Planning and Traffic Division from Public Service. First, from Planning, Mr. Christopher Lohr. Could you provide council the reasoning for planning staff's approval of the application?
Thank you, Chair Dorans, members of council. Planning is supportive of the proposed variances. The Northland Plan Volume 2 recommends Preserve District at this location, which, as noted, recommends continuing the residential development pattern on the east side of Hamilton Road. The proposed multifamily development is consistent with this recommendation and is of a comparable intensity to residential uses to the east and is therefore supported by planning. Staff is also supportive of the proposed parking variance with the understanding a follow-up rezoning will be required and will reserve additional comments related to the site and building design until such a time a rezoning is initiated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lohr. And finally, I would like to ask for Mr. Dan Bleshman from the Department of Public Service Traffic Management Division to provide comments on their approval as well. Mr. Bleshman.
Thank you, Chair Dorans, members of council. A traffic access study was previously required for a larger area development, including this site, in 2015. In consideration of this significant change in use from the previously proposed uses, an updated traffic access study will be required to be performed in order to ensure that the appropriate roadway improvements within North Hamilton Road will be implemented in conjunction with this project. In consideration of the funding application deadline associated with this application and in consideration that this ordinance is conditioned on a follow-up rezoning application occurring, the updated traffic access study will be required to be performed prior to approval of the follow-up rezoning application. Any necessary roadway improvements within North Hamilton Road would be required to be implemented in conjunction with a proposed development of the site. Additionally, the Department of Public Service is supportive of the requested variance to reduce the number of required parking spaces in consideration that there will be a minimum of one parking space per dwelling unit provided on the site, in consideration that there are not any public streets immediately adjacent to this site that would be anticipated to be adversely affected, and in consideration of the proposed uses of this property. Based on these considerations, our department is in support of this application.
Thank you, Mr. Bleshman. I want to pause and see if any of my council colleagues have questions for the departments at this time. Seeing none, I would invite the applicant's attorney to the podium to make a presentation to council. Welcome back to council, Ms. Laura Comack. And I will go ahead and swear you in when you're at the podium. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, as you shall answer under pains of penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Floor is yours, man.
Thank you. Chairman Dorans, members of City Council, my name is Laura Comack. I'm here on behalf of Homeport. We have a number of speakers this evening, and so if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer those right at this time. Otherwise, let's hear from the speakers, and then I can come back and answer any specific questions or any additional points that are made. At that time, I'll fill you in about the two-step process. This is step 1 of 2 that the city has developed, so I think we'll be able to answer a few questions and make sure everyone's satisfied.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Komek. Any questions from council members at this time? Great. Thank you. We'll call you back up. As I mentioned, we've got 3 public speakers signed up to speak against this ordinance. I'm going to call them in order that we received their speaker slip. When I call your name, please come to the podium, and I will swear you in there, and you can state any relationship you have to the property. The first individual to come before council is Mr. Daniel Stubner. Stubner. Welcome to council, sir. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, as you shall answer pains and penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Floor is yours, sir.
Okay. You've all seen the variance request. You understand what that means. But I want you to ask yourself what it really means. When you have too few parking spaces, it limits your access to get around, particularly in a commercial zone. Another aspect of this is that there's no safe public transportation. The nearest one is about half a mile away. You either have to walk through a gas station across the field or through a main entryway to a Meijer grocery store. That is not safe. So what you're telling people is, hey, low income, we're going to help you out, but it's not going to be up to our own standards. So you really want to vote and say, hey, you're not worth it? And I have a personal side to this. I grew up in Virginia in a single parent home outside of DC, and we didn't have it. We needed something, we had to go get it. One thing DC had was the metro, and they had buses. So I was able to go get a job on the weekends. I was able to work during the summers. That allowed me to buy a car, and we had a place where I could park my car. You're telling these people you don't have safe public transportation, and which means can you work? And if you work, you can't have a car. So how far can you go to work? Do you really want to tell people that they're not good enough for your own standards? And that's really all I have to ask. I mean, there's standards in place.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Stubner? See none. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next individuals, and I believe they're going to come to the podium together, are Ms. Sarah Rastegard and Mr. Thomas McCash. Welcome to council. Please raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, as you shall answer in pains and penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do. I do. Thank you. Floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Rastkar. I own property to the north of the applicant's development. I have owned the property for the last 30 years. And their previous site plan, I asked the gentleman to pass it around to you folks. That site plan was approved by the city council a couple years ago. And if you look at the north side of it, it shows that there is a building setback more than 25 feet at my property line. And the parking setback is 10 feet. It took a long time that everybody agreed on this site plan. Their current application throws this all away and really reduces their parking setback at my property line to 0. And they're not being committal into any building setbacks at my property. They're putting up a 3-story building without having proper setbacks at my property line. I have been there for a long time. I pay taxes, 30 years, that's a long time. And diminishing my property value, the way that they're doing it in different steps. But it really, the bottom line is that They're devaluating my property at this point, and I need your help. I need every single one of you folks, your help. If this was your property and you had been there for a lifetime, this is my life's work, and these folks are diminishing its value. I have no issue with the apartment building being there as long as they stay with these setbacks that was set on the paper 2 years ago. I like these setbacks to be enforced with their new development.
Thank you. Thomas McCash, 005979, representing Sarah Rastiger. As Sarah has indicated, there was development standards that were set up with this over the years, going back to 2015, and then various different changes that have occurred to subparcels within the area. In each of those areas, there was the parking setback and the building setback component that's part of that. They're now asking, and they didn't mention it here, but we haven't got any updated applications. They wanted the building setback and the parking setback on the north side, adjacent to my client's property, to be 0. Their layout that they've provided, they're providing 25 foot on the south side. Their layout, they could actually mirror in the east-west direction and provide the 25-foot setback on the north side and do 0 on the south side and have the exact same site plan that they have. We don't know why they're not doing that. One of the documents that they submitted to the City of Columbus, planning on, I believe it was December 3rd, and you may or may not have this particular piece. This actually shows their layout, but it actually shows their parking along the north side, approximately 15 to 20 feet onto my client's property. So we're a little confused about what their exact layout is and how it actually impacts my client's property because of what they're proposing in some of the stuff that they've submitted to the city. So my client's not opposed to the multifamily housing, not opposed to providing the affordable housing component, but we would like to maintain that 25-foot setback on the north property. They could have 0 on the south property. Simply doing a privacy fence with parking. Any car that parks in there, pulls into that parking space, hits that fence. Now we don't have the fence. Who's going to maintain it? We're going to constantly have to call the city to come out, issue citations, take them to environmental court, go through that whole process. Where if we had the 25-foot setback on that north side, she's comfortable with that, and I think they could still do their same project.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from council members? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
At this time, I'd like to invite Ms. Comack back to the podium to respond to any of the testimony.
All right, thank you. Let's deal with Ms. Rastigar's points first. We are not on their property. As a matter of our application, both by the parcel number and the legal description, we are not legally permitted to do anything on their property. I think they're referring to just some of the labels and the notations that appear typically on a site plan. So we have no intention of encroaching on their property. Number 2, Ms. Rastigar's property is in Plain Township, zoned local business. Her current zoning provides certain setbacks. Nothing that we are proposing on our site impinges her ability to develop the site as it is currently zoned for a whole variety of really great local business and general business uses. 3, we are and have been showing a 25-foot building setback on all of the different concept plans that we have presented. So we plan to keep that moving forward. So, and also, all of this information was previously communicated to her and Northland several months back when I first received correspondence from her counsel.
Questions from council members, the applicant's representative. Councilman Remy?
Yeah. Question, what is the median income for this property? And can you talk to what type of people that we're talking about, like
Yes.
professions?
Yeah, absolutely. So this project has a variety. It spans from 30% AMI to 60% AMI. 30% AMI is $29,000 for a family of four. That is an income and a salary commonly associated with retail workers. Retail workers that, for example, would work at the commercial and retail establishments along Hamilton Road. 60% AMI is $60,000 for a family of four. That's a sheriff's deputy, that's teachers, that's lots of jobs. So, and to address only briefly the point of the first gentleman, this property is located in a vibrant, market-driven environment, right? The Hamilton Road corridor is not in any way a subsidized market. It's a vital commercial developing area. The idea that we wouldn't put affordable housing here should bother you, right? This property actually fulfills the goals of affordable housing, which is to build a fabric where we don't see a lot of the difference. And there's no reason why people who live in affordable housing shouldn't have access to all of the amenities that this corridor provides. Now, to his point about safety, which I think is really well taken, you know Homeport. We are committed on every project to extending COTA service lines and the shuttles and the availability of the access so that we are actually generating good locations for people to live closer to their work environments, easier to get there. This site is within 12 miles of Intel. So all of those things, including a really vibrant corridor, is exactly where everyone deserves to live. The variables surrounding density and a couple of those questions, like parking, are things that we grapple with on a variety of sites. Homeport has to compete in the market with for-profit developers of all kinds. How we work through that process is two steps. The first is to see if we can place ourselves in a good position for the LIHTC funding. So that's why the city came up with the two-step process. This is step one. We are very fortunate, and I'm very thankful to have the communication, right, the open line of dialogue with Northland. We have been, before this application was ever filed, communicated with Northland. We have continued that dialogue even through today. We're all committed to working through step two to see where we can bridge the gaps. This comes down to density and parking from a technical compliance standpoint. If we continue to work on our site developments, if we continue to maintain that 25-foot building setback, we can increase the parking and still put a good product together for the community, because these projects start and end with the community. So that's how we've approached it. I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Sure. Other questions, council members? Councilmember Favor.
So just to clarify, because I believe the applicant, the owner specifically stated that on the north side there was 0-foot setback. That is you're saying that is incorrect?
Correct. It's parking. The parking setback goes immediately up to the property line. The building setback is at least 25 feet away.
Okay.
And in her commercial district, within the local business designation in Plain Township, there's on her side of the line a requirement to stay 25 feet away. On our side, plus the 25, that's 50 feet from any residential building. So her site is preserved. She can continue to develop it as she would as if we weren't even there. The question, if you don't mind me answering, we aren't committing to the site plan at this time, that second step. So for any of the newer council folks, we will submit for the LIHTC credits. If we are approved, and this is a very high scoring site for the reason that I just mentioned, we will then come back through the full process for rezoning and have an opportunity to tweak a site plan and commit to those items in writing. The city actually requires, as a condition of me being here this evening, an application on file so that everyone knows we've got to come back for a second opportunity to sharpen our pencils and come back with landscaping and all of those kinds of things.
Other questions from council members?
So I just want to put a finer point on this, that we have an applicant before us that's not dedicated to a site plan because you want to work with, I think, the community to come up with the best plan. The variance that's before us is, again, regarding parking. With the current site plan that's before us, what is the number of parking spaces that is for the 60-unit apartment?
Yes, so the concept plan that you have before you, and I like this site being up as well, so you can see just how it's situated. One unit, one space per unit, so we have 60 currently shown,
Okay. Got it.
which is very consistent with a number of projects, both for and nonprofit, in terms of housing.
Got it.
Other questions of council members? Thank you. I appreciate it.
Chair, I just also wanted to just share with folks about some of the concerns around transportation. So with the proposal of Link Us, which is our bus rapid transit, one of the Link Us corridors is straight down Main Street, so we'll go all the way from downtown all the way through Reynoldsburg. Hamilton Road is off of that. There's a 50% increase that CODA would also have. So all of those, especially the main arteries off of that, would see an increase in buses and would see an increase in transportation. I think it's just important for us to point that out because I think that the good thing about development is that it does bring additional resources. And so sometimes it brings that infrastructure that is built around those developments as we continue to build that. Those things go hand in hand with each other.
I think that's right.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank
you, Ms. Comack. So to put a finer point on this, so again, this is the variance portion of this application. As I mentioned earlier in my comments, the Northland Community Council have voted disapproval on this project. The Northland Community Council has historically worked very closely with the city on affordable housing within the area that they represent. We have committed to them that there's a lot of work to do here from, I think, a variety of the topics that have been discussed, both by the applicant and several of the speakers here. We expect those issues to be resolved before the companion rezoning would be brought to us. That's a commitment that I've made to the Northland Community Council to work through. And again, because they've been great partners, we want to make sure that those things are addressed. And an organization like Homeport, who has a fantastic reputation for working through these issues on their projects, I expect that they will do that in this instance like they have before. And particularly making sure that we can move this application through this process after it's been established that the hardships are required under the variance through the city staff approval process. I'm comfortable moving this forward, again, with the expectation that the applicant here continues to work to ensure that when this companion rezoning comes before us, and hopefully it will, because they'll be successful in the Housing Financing Agency tax credit process, that we'll be in a position to pass that rezoning with everyone in full support of that. So with that, I would first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Accepted. I next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Adopted. And finally, I move for passage. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Dorans, Favor Green, Remy White, President Harden.
Passed. Next, we have ordinance 0343-2024 to grant a variance provisions of section 3332.38H and G, private garage of the Columbus City Codes for property located at 453 Stewart Avenue to allow habitable space above a detached garage with reduced development standards in the R2F residential district. This site consists of a single unit dwelling, and the applicant is requesting a council variance to construct a habitable space above an existing detached garage for office space, gym, and storage, as well as variances to the garage height. The proposal has approval from city staff and the Southside Area Commission. I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Accepted. I next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Adopted. And finally, move for passage. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Thank you. Passed. Next, we have ordinance 0356-2024 to grant a variance provisions of section 3332.035 R3 Residential District, 3332.05A4 Area District Lot with requirements of Columbus City Code to property located at 201 West North Broadway to allow a 2-unit dwelling on a lot with reduced development within the R3 Residential District. The site consists of one undeveloped parcel in the R3 Residential District with a requested council variance to allow the applicant to construct a 2-unit dwelling. A council variance is required because the R3 district only allows single-unit dwelling per lot. The request also includes a variance to lot with requirements. The proposal has support from city staff and the Clintonville Area Commission. I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Accepted. I next move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Adopted. And finally, I move for passage. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed. Next, we have ordinance 0358-2024 to grant a variance for provisions of section 3332.037 R2 Residential District, 3312.21D Landscaping and Screening, 3312.49 Required Parking, 3321.05 B12 Vision Clearance, 3325.705 Supplemental Parking Requirements, 3325.805 Maximum Floor Area Ratio, and 3325.809 Landscaping and Area and Treatment of the Columbus City Codes for property located at 44 East Duncan Street to allow a shared living facility for 16 occupants with a reduced development standard in the R2F residential district. The site consists of one parcel developed with a 2-unit dwelling in the R2F residential district. The requested council variance will allow the existing dwelling to be converted into a shared living facility. Council variance is required because the R2F district does not allow shared living facilities. The request includes a variance to landscaping, screening, required parking, vision clearance, supplemental parking, maximum floor area, and landscaping area and treatment requirements. The proposal has approvals from city staff and the University Area Commission. I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
And finally, I accepted. Next, I move to adopt this findings of staff as the findings of council. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Adopted. And finally, move for passage. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
Passed. Seeing no more business to come before the zoning committee, can I get a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, de Alkire, Favor, Green, Remy White, President Pro Tem Dorans.
We stand adjourned. Thank you.